Hello and welcome to this Circles Southwest podcast. My name is Sara Radford and I'm one of the Circles coordinators for the Southwest. Today I'm speaking with Will, one of our regular volunteers, about his motivation for and experience of being part of a circle. Hi Will, thanks very much for joining me today. Can I start by asking you, what was it that made you consider volunteering with Circles Southwest?
I suppose volunteering has, for a little while, been really important in my life. I think that you get this kind of connection in volunteering, which you don't normally get in our normal interactions in society. Like, our lives can become quite small quite easily, and you have your work or your education and your friends, and volunteering is a really beautiful way to kind of make connections with people from very different parts of life or different ages, so that's one reason why I do it.
Have you volunteered in other areas then?
Yeah, usually mostly of young people, a couple of other like kind of community action, homeless stuff before.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, kind of like lots of young people stuff.
And so what brought Circle Southwest to your attention?
Well, it kind of really fulfills that in a deeper way, really, because in circles you're building this little community around someone and you're fostering that kind of sense of community and connection, and that's kind of the power of circles and what it's all about. And so for me it seemed like a really perfect way, which matched with like kind of what I was interested in volunteering. I mean, the other thing is that, like, I suppose what I find really satisfying is forming connection with people who are very different to myself. That's what I think is really interesting, and like working out how to build that connection and kind of build those bridges and then, you know, maintain those bridges or whatever. I find that a really, really fascinating, fulfilling process, and so that's kind of what Circles is all about, really.
It certainly is, but it's also very specifically working with people who have committed emotive harm, sexual harm or sexual offending, and have convictions, or the majority have convictions for a serious sexual offence. And I just wonder, you know, was that a big leap for you from your other volunteering roles into something quite so complex and emotive?
Yeah, that definitely was. Definitely was a big jump. I've been doing a little bit of work in similar settings, a little bit, just in like kind of some hospitals, some forensic hospitals, and like a little bit. So I was interested in like this area, but it was a big change. And I mean, for me, it does come kind of back to this idea of kind of creating a connection with someone who's different to you. And part of that requires a real openness, like an openness of mind, an openness of heart. And I don't think you kind of can get those things if you don't kind of push yourself and like challenge yourself and challenge what you think. So that's part of the motivation. That's like me looking at me, like what I'm getting out of it, because I think it is really important to understand like what whenever you do this kind of stuff for other people, like, or community work or things, you've got to understand like why you're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why it makes you feel good.
And kind of stepping out of that a bit, what do you think circles offer to the community or for the society more broadly?
It's just no more victims. No more victims. I found that a really, really powerful phrase. No more victims. And whenever I've tried to explain circles to friends and family and things like that, that's what I always come back to, is just no more victims. And we were talking about restorative justice earlier, and I've done a bit of restorative justice in a couple of other settings, and it's just like this idea that like we're all in this together, and there's so much like gloominess and negative stuff out there, and it's so easy to moan, and actually circles is an opportunity for people to kind of take a stand together, and like, you know, misogynism and sexual violence against women is something which is kind of really being talked about and brought into the sunlight a lot more now, and like circles is an opportunity for you to take an active role in being part of the solution to all this stuff.
What do you think the qualities are the necessary qualities to volunteer in this role? Because it's not going to be for everyone, is it?
No, it's not.
You know, we
It's
know,
not.
for example, that 1 in 4 of us are the victim or the survivor of some kind of sexual assault. And actually that doesn't mean that you can't volunteer. It may mean actually that your volunteering is really rich and beneficial, but it may be that, you know, you have to be really cautious about it being the right time for you to volunteer.
That's definitely true, yeah.
But you talk about being able to see other people's perspectives.
Yeah, that's what was in my mind just then. You just, like, that's one thing I've really taken from the experience, is just being really open in my communication and be willing to listen and talk to your, because you have these core, like, there's you as a little team, there's the 4 of you, the members of the circle, and then you have your core member, and like you'll have these little debriefs after or maybe before. You're okay, we probably need to talk about this, that they said that, let's talk about this. And like you need to be, and I know you said these are really emotive subjects, like kind of, you know, my circle was with a young person, and they were talking about their sexual education, sex ed in class, and things that were coming up for them and how to manage that, you know, like part of their safe part of their kind of the therapy and the work which had been done by formal services with them was about, they weren't allowed to talk about sex, they weren't allowed to engage in sex, and yet there is this natural exploration which occurs, especially in school, in the kind of that setting, and then we had to think about, all right, how do we talk about this? And people can have, because it is a really emotive thing, people can have really different ideas on what should be said and how to carry out these conversations. And so, yeah, you need to really be able to take different perspectives within like how your little core group operates. You know, you can have openness and respect and listening to an appreciation of like kind of common humanity or whatever with the core member, but you also need to, like, there's relationships which form within this group, and that's really amazing. Like, it's really, you become such a tight knit kind of little group with people who you would never meet usually.
It's really multi-layered, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because each circle comprises 3, 4 or 5 volunteers who all meet each week with the core member, the young person or the older person who's got a conviction of sexual offending, and so, like as you say, you develop relationships, and you have to learn to work together with people who, I guess, you know, whilst you're going to have some shared core values, they might not be, as you say, people that you meet and socialise with on a regular basis. So I guess that's potentially a challenge. Did you find that a challenge?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, for sure. It's also, it is the strength of the whole circles process, because people are coming from different positions, different angles, and people need to hear different things. And also, the very nature of having different perspectives means that's what kind of prompts the growth in people, and that's what prompted the growth in me as well. Not only in the core member, you know, you're meant to be modelling how to reflect and think about stuff and think about your behaviour and think about different ways of looking at stuff. But yeah, I felt that I gained a lot from all of my skills or whatever in that department definitely improved. But I like what you just said then about the multi-layered of it. There is that real sense of you kind of build this relationship as a group, and it is really multi-layered, and it takes a lot. Like with anything, if you put a lot of time into something, then you usually get really good rewards out of it, and that's the relationship that you kind of build as this little community.
I guess it's probably quite useful for people who are listening to have an understanding of the length of time a circle lasts, and I know that your circle has ended slightly earlier than was anticipated. But I guess if we can just take you back to once you contacted Circle Southwest and got an understanding of what you needed to do to actually become a volunteer, you were invited on the mandatory 2-day training and assessment event. How was that? Can you remember how that was for you?
Yeah, it was lovely. We went to a nice hotel in Taunton, and again, really diverse mix of volunteers, everyone coming in not really knowing what to expect. And looking back on it now, it was a really, really good preparation, actually follow up the kind of spirit and ethos that the circles operates in, and when you get down to your little circle, your little group, because it's, you get given. I think it started with some nice kind of circle-based kind of group not mixing, but like kind of you're all here together and you're kind of like just landing in the room, discussing the kind of therapeutic ways of like kind of just being in a room around other people, which was cool. And then it was really nice how like different subjects and topics were brought, and you had to kind of rate them or put yourself on one side of a debate, like, I don't know, whether pornography should be used as a therapeutic tool or something like that, some like kind of controversial issue, or maybe a stereotype like kind of all sex offenders, all victims go on to be offenders, something like that.
Yeah.
And then you would have this really cool, lively discussion about it in the room, and it felt like it was a really, it was, of all the trainings I've been on for lots of different volunteering things, it was definitely the best one, because it's just really immersive and you're there just talking about stuff, and it's just, you've got to be open. Like that's what I think the circles, what is it, the heart of it all is openness, and that was really reflected in the training, that's what made it so beneficial, I think.
Yeah. And the training is 2 days, so and it is pretty intense. It sounds like you've got some considerable experience of that kind of learning environment, maybe, which perhaps not necessarily every potential volunteer would have. But it's important, I guess, to understand the processes. And did you feel like when you came out of the training, did you feel any way different about this volunteering role? More enthusiastic, less enthusiastic? How did it impact on you?
I think it's like whenever you sign up for something, you always go in, oh yeah, that looks really, that'd be nice, that'd be really good, that looks interesting. And that's the kind of, but you're kind of, that's a bit vague, and you're a bit like, oh god, I got to go to this thing now, and you just go to it. And then the next 2 days later, I remember coming out and having this really firm kind of idea of what this whole sub area was, and yeah, like just, I remember ringing my friend after it, who I was going to see, and he was like, where have you been? I was like, oh yeah, I've just been at this training, it's for, forming circles around sex offenders. And he was like, what? Like, are you serious? Are you for real, mate? And I was like, yeah. And then I kind of, a lot of the talking and stuff that we talked about, I then kind of explained to him, and he kind of understood it pretty quickly, actually, to be fair. But there was an initial reaction like, oh, what is that? And I suppose the fact that I did that and just was straight into it, kind of, for me, reflects how like it was a really full-bodied thing in my mind by the end of it. It was like, right, there's this thing now. This is really really interesting. This is really cool. This is like this thing that I want to be part of, that I'm now part of.
So you had a clear understanding of the process. How a core member is assessed and assigned to a circle, and how the volunteers work together, supporting over a long period of time. And I guess, I don't know how it compares with your other volunteering roles, but did it feel kind of onerous in terms of the length of time that you're expected or required to volunteer?
Not at all, no. Oh, well, to volunteer?
Yeah, so the length of time that you would be in a circle. So I guess you were anticipating a 12-month circle.
Yeah, so 12 months is a long time, but that's what. And I think for my circle, it was particularly intense because it was a very young person, about 11, 12 years old, and so we did it every week. Usually after, I think, 6 months or so, it starts to taper down as you prepare for an ending. So every other week, and then maybe a bit less, even less than that, once a month, right at the end. But I was just like full on, just the whole way through every week, and so it was intense for sure. I think that's a bit more of an exceptional one. It's usually a bit less than that, but it's the length of time which is really, really, I found, the most important thing about it, because you really see this person change over a year, and you see the relationships around them change as well, with this young person's mum and their stepdad, and you can just you feel this, every week you go and you reflect and you talk about their thoughts and their behaviour and just life and what's going on. And at the beginning they're all kind of tense and just a bit blank and a bit like kind of not very detailed, or just just a bit blank. And then 9 months down the line they're talking about all these internal stuff and how they feel and what's going on, and it's the length of time which enables that to occur, and you also see it a lot more.
Yeah, I think that the beauty of a circle is that you have to be cautious and you have to start slowly, but building that rapport and that level of trust. If you put yourself in the position of the core member, it's a big ask, isn't it?
But what really helps that as well is the coordinator. Your circle's coordinator sits above you, and is organised, looking after things, and they're super contactable, and they're really present. They come in every 3 months to do a review, which sounds like a long time, but you're always in contact with them, you have a review with the circle member and whoever else. Maybe they're friends or family, and that's really good, and you kind of reflect on these things together, and then you have another review just as members, circle members, without the core member, and that's a really, really good opportunity to reflect on stuff and think about things and just discuss what's been going on and what changes you see, what changes you don't see, what changes you want to see, and the circle coordinator really facilitates that basically, and you kind of feel really held in this journey.
So there's never any concern that you will have to manage information or circumstances on your own as volunteers?
I never felt that, no.
No.
First of all, you're a group, there's 4 of you, so at least 4 of you, at least 3 of you, there's a group of you handling this together. There's no sense that you're carrying any weight, really, and our coordinator was really, really clear about that, and was always reachable. That she knew exactly when our things were. If we were late, feeding back, you have to write a little report at the end of it, not long. She's on it straight away and really encourages contact and stuff like that. So I think that's obviously really important, because it is emotive, and like things can come up, and right at the end of our circle there was a situation occurred which did require kind of some help from social services and stuff like that, and that's the nature of working with this kind of client group, and the coordinator was just amazing at being there throughout the whole thing and just really taking ownership, and it really didn't feel like the weight was on you at all. You were just there to perform all the good bits, basically.
That's good to know, and that's obviously our intention, but it's good to hear that feedback from you. So just kind of winding up, Will, are there any things that you would want to say to people who are thinking about volunteering? Just put you on the spot here.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I mean, we know, for example, that you as a male are in the minority. We always struggle to recruit male volunteers. Has there been any kind of gender perspectives that you could throw on? I guess, you only know your own personal circumstances, but I'm imagining that the other volunteers were female in your circle.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the male thing, I think it's really, really important to have a male in the circle, because there is just that feeling of, it breaks the ice a little bit. Even I didn't even find myself it wasn't like I was shouldering all the responsibility to talk about anything which was remotely puberty or sexual or whatever. That wasn't the case. This is shared responsibility, because there's this connection that I'm talking about that you've built as a group. Mm-hmm. And nothing happens for a couple months, at least 3 or 4 months. You're there building this relationship. Everyone's finding their place, and then stuff comes out naturally, as it would in any kind of relationship setting, I suppose. But having a male does balance it out a little bit. I think there's just a level of gender. I think genders just work better when there's balance, and it makes it a little bit less fraught. And as I said, it's not like you're taking the brunt of it as a man at all. It's just your presence there helps a male, because it's overwhelmingly men who sexually offend, from what I understand, and it just helps facilitate the conversation a little bit. You can put a little bit of perspective in. if like the girls in the group or women don't really they're questioning something, then it enables the core member to kind of, you can help facilitate the conversation a little bit,
Yeah.
with a bit more balance.
Yeah, definitely.
But in terms of what I would say to someone, do it. Just do it. Honestly, it seems like a long commitment, but it really becomes part of your week very, very effortlessly, and it's just so valuable for yourself and for society. Like, really, really valuable. I think there's anything more valuable you could do. It's like whenever you do volunteering, it's always like, whenever I've done it, there's this way up between, okay, what this time that I'm spending at feel useful, like, and with voluntary projects, because it's voluntary, like sometimes there's a lot of faffing or whatever. But this, every single second I spent with that core member felt like you're doing something really valuable for society, stopping more victims in the future, because that's how it happens. Is like someone who's got a history of harmful sexual behaviour, they're gonna, it's in situations of alienation and isolation and depression or whatever, not being able to, non-self-awareness, that reoffending happens. So if you can like kind of help stop that, then that's really powerful. But as I said, like that's the whole one part of it. But for me, like what is really important is what you get out of it. Why am I doing this? And I really, really learned a lot about myself and about how to interact with people and how to have an open mind and an open heart.
That's
which
fantastic.
is important.
That's fantastic. A really nice encapsulation of why you volunteer, and I think why other people should be and are considering it. So thank you so much, Will. I really appreciate it.
No, well, it's my pleasure.
Thanks for listening. Do visit our website, circlessouthwest.org.uk, to discover more about our work and learn how you can volunteer too.